Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please help us build the channel by grabbing the Amazon link in the description section below. Grab that link to your regular shopping at Amazon and help us build the channel. Also, we've got 2 exclusive live streams. You grab the link below that says Voice of College Football. You join me on a regular basis with 2 exclusive live streams responding to your comments and bringing you on to talk college football with me. We're talking college football, West Virginia in particular, with Skylar Callahan. You can join him and the rest of the staff there at Dub V Nation. And we bring Skylar on to talk up West Virginia football and get me educated on what the Mountaineers have here in 2019 with Big 10, Big 12 media days just a few weeks away. So, Skylar, I'm looking at this schedule. This is what I love. Now, this isn't necessarily good news for you and West Virginia fans who want as many wins as possible in a season that you probably should get to. You should get to a bowl game, but it's not a give me. You lose a ton of talent. But after the James Madison opener on August 31st, I love the 2 Power 5 games, not just the one, but 2 quality Power 5 opponents going to Missouri and then NC State at home. So 2 games that you don't look at as, wow, we can't win these games. It's Alabama and Ohio State coming to town or something like that, but they're not gimmies. They should be extremely competitive games that Vegas has pretty much as even type matchups. I would think at this point, these are going to be 2 interesting matchups that are going to set the stage for the rest of the season.
Yes, certainly. And I love this. Shane Lyons, the athletic director, he's kind of started to go in this direction. If you look at the future schedules for West Virginia, there's a ton of years where they're scheduling 2 Power 5 opponents. And honestly, I think that's what a lot of college football should go to. I mean, there's no reason to play these FCS teams. And I don't even think there should be any, I don't even think any team should be scheduling an FCS opponent. A group of 5 opponent, okay, you get one of them, maybe 2. But some of these, teams like the SEC where you got Alabama, Georgia playing, Georgia Southern or the Citadel, the week before rivalry week, it's not fair to, the teams in the Big 12 like in Oklahoma or Texas that may have to play an Oklahoma State or TCU or West Virginia in that same week when they're all trying to vie for one of those playoff spots. So I think it's just a way to get a late win. But I do love the West Virginia schedule this year. I think it sets up pretty nicely for them. And they do have a couple of tough road opponents. Obviously going to Norman's not going to be an easy game. And obviously going to Fort Worth near the end of the year against TCU is not going to be, no stroll in the park. But I do like to be able to play NC State and Missouri, get those 2 Power 5 teams on your schedule. And I know it's a little bit too early for an actual prediction, but as of right now, I got West Virginia at about 5-7. And, when I look at the schedule, I see 5-7. I'm not sure which games. I kind of go back and forth on a couple of them, but I think Neil Brown is good enough that he's going to get this team to bowl eligibility. So I'm going to say 6-6 as of right now, just because when you got a guy like this, and I told you this a couple of shows back, he is Dabo Sweeney. So these guys, they buy into him. They buy into this culture. They want to run through a brick wall for him. And I think when you establish a culture like that, you're going to get better results. You're going to get more out of lesser talent. So I think even though this is maybe a 5-win roster right now with the inexperience and the depth being an issue, I think he somehow finds a way to get the 6 wins. I'm not sure exactly how at this point, but my prediction may change by the time, middle of August comes around and we see what's going on in camp. So it could go completely in one direction or the other.
I'm with you on that one. I always hold out to the last second to pull the trigger on my season predictions, and then I do that every week to week just on the game predictions. It's like 11:55, and I'm waiting to pull the trigger on those predictions. But anyway, after the 2-game matchup with NC State and Missouri, Kansas may not be as much of a pushover as they have been in recent years, or for a long time, the last 12 years actually. And they were better last year. Wasn't enough to keep David Beatty and his job, but they were better last year. Didn't necessarily embarrass themselves week to week. And you got to go to Kansas to start out Big 12 play. Then you get a bye week, and then this is a rough stretch. Texas, Iowa State, at Oklahoma, 3 straight.
Yeah, that's really tough. And if you're West Virginia, you almost hope you go 4-0 in those first 4. And it's going to be tough because I think even James Madison is a team that could easily sneak up and beat West Virginia. James Madison's no pushover. I know I don't like playing FCS teams, or FBS teams scheduling FCS teams. But James Madison, they're pretty good. I mean, this is a team that's completely on in the top 5 and the top 10 year in and year out in their own division. And I think that's no pushover game right there. So if you get past James Madison, I think you got to at least split NC State, Missouri. If you do that, that's considered a win in my book. If you sweep those 2 games, that's even better. If you get to the Kansas game 3-0, now you're in a really good position because, like you said, that tough stretch of those 3 games. If you're 4-0 or 3-1, now you can afford to drop maybe 1 or 2, even though you wouldn't like to, and still have a chance to gain a bowl eligibility spot. So I think the middle of the schedule is definitely the most rigorous, and especially having to play possibly 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams in the conference.
Then a bye week. And then the last 5 games, you could look at any of these games. The toughest one on paper would be TCU on the road to end the season. But really, all 5 games are, if you told me West Virginia's going to beat Baylor, I would say, sure. If you said they're going to go to Baylor and lose, I'd say, sure. And pretty much all the games are like that. Baylor on the road, Texas Tech at home, at Kansas State. Might be a transition year, obviously, with the new head coach and Chris Kleiman taking hold. So not much expected out of the Wildcats, but that's not going to be easy going all the way across to the middle section of the country at Manhattan against Kansas State. Oklahoma State at home at TCU. Again, 3-2 in that stretch, 2-3, 3-2. I would think would be a decent showing, but they could beat all those teams. They could lose to all those teams.
Yeah, and I think really there's a lot of parity in the Big 12 this year because outside of Oklahoma, Texas, I mean, maybe you can kind of consider Iowa State as a contender. You just don't know what they're going to get. They lost a couple of strong pieces. But other than that, I mean, when you look at West Virginia's schedule, there's a lot of games they could win, a lot of games that they could lose, like you said. And I think a lot of them are a coin flip because a lot of these teams are going through a transition period just like West Virginia. The Mountaineers are not the only ones rebuilding in the Big 12. So, I mean, when we talked about it on the Between Years show the other day, I mean, my partner Chris Hall, he said, this could be a year where West Virginia goes 9-3 somehow, just because there's so much parity and there's so much turnover in the Big 12, or they could go 4-8 or 5-7. We just don't know, and I don't think you're really going to get a good grasp about what's going to happen in the Big 12 this year, probably until like the 3rd or 4th league game, not the 3rd or 4th game of the season, but 3rd or 4th league game. And I would not be surprised if the Big 12 champion has maybe 2-3 losses this year. I think this is going to be a significant step back for the Big 12 this year just because of all the playmakers that have been lost to the NFL or graduation.
Yeah, it's probably going to be one of those seasons for West Virginia where at the end, it's 6-6 because they played in all these close games. They won their share. They lost their share. Or it happens all the time where a couple teams in the nation, you could look at their record and say, that's kind of deceiving. Yeah, they went 9-3, but man, they skated by. They got most of the breaks. Or, man, that team was 5-7, but they were better than that. They really lost some close ones. But for most of the nation that's in that pool, it usually evens out most of the time in regards to that. And you're thinking along the same lines that I am with Oklahoma's losses. Jalen Hurts is good, but he's not as good as Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray. Oklahoma's going from like best quarterback play in the nation to like a top 25 quarterback. And that's a pretty steep drop. He's still good, but he's not Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray. The offensive line play may take a step back as well. It's still going to be really good. But again, they had like best in the nation and they lose like 4 of those guys. And the defense has yet to be fixed that we have seen, even though they bring in Alex Grinch from Ohio State. So Oklahoma, Texas appear to be the class. TCU might have something to say if they get a quarterback in play that can do it. They've got like 5 guys that are competing in camp. It's like a wide open deal. And then, like you say, everybody else, aside from Kansas, seems to be fighting for bowl bids from there. Skylar Callahan, WV Nation, you got to join him right there. Joins us on a regular basis to talk West Virginia football right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Skylar, we always appreciate you stopping by.
No problem, Mark. Thanks for having me on, and I can't wait for the next show.